Ooh. Oh, yeah.
Well, today I have the Melanated Council of Yang in the Nerd Zone. We're going to talk about what the heck is going on in this country, probably old Andrew Yang, and whatever the hot topics are. Before we get there, we need Yang to warm us up.
There's no place to hide now that he's arrived. I'm saying he ain't playing now with this campaign. Bang, dang, it's and Drew, come roll with the Yang Gang. Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up with. Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up with. Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up. Yo, there's no place to hide now that he's arrived. I'm saying he ain't playing now with this campaign. Bang, dang, it's and Drew, come roll with the Yang Gang.
Hello.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. Well, look, I've been eager to get the council into the Nerd Zone for a while. I'm sorry it's taken us so long to connect, but I'm glad we're here. So welcome to the show.
thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Why don't we start with some intros for the Nerds for Humanity viewers who are not familiar with the Melanated Council? So maybe we'll just start. We'll go Ronald, Toby, Leandra in that order, kind of clockwise. Okay. Just who are you, and what do you do, and then we'll get into talking about broader topics.
Okay, so I'm Ronald, part of Melanated Council of the Gang, shortened for McCoy. And I pretty much run our back ops for our shows and whatnot. I do a lot of tech stuff and whatnot, help set up interviews. My two co-hosts, I don't even call them co-hosts, my two hosts, there we go. My two hosts, we talk about different topics. We have different people come on, and we just love to have fun and cool, laid back and chill. So
I love it.
That's the short end version.
And where are you joining us from, Ronald?
Oh, I am joining from the cold part of Michigan.
Oh, yeah. Toby, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, I think he has me beat because I'm in Massachusetts, so pretty cold. I moved here like 2 years ago. Was a little, I guess, informally volunteering for the campaign. Helped do some runs up to New Hampshire, January, February. So kind of a little bit late in the game, but a little bit of canvassing and just helping to grow the Mass Yang Gang. And I had always been affiliated with these people, my great friends and hosts. And I think back in like May of last year, when things were getting really crazy in the country with a lot of the police, murders and just other sort of kind of brutality, we were like, why don't we start this kind of channel? And so I've been on basically since the beginning. I mean, we don't have defined rules, but I do at least try to like reach out to other social media groups and like spread awareness of who we are. And I kind of sometimes post on my own channels just to like help show like, hey, this is McCoy, this is our message. Let's tune in and let's talk about these great, conversations. So I'm here. I'm just doing my thing and helping out in whatever way I can. So
well, welcome, Toby. It's I'm looking forward to talking more about the channel, and spent a little time in Massachusetts, so I don't miss the winters there too much, but the fall is beautiful. Yeah. Leandra, welcome.
Hey, thank you. I'm Leandra, or L for short. I'm from South Florida, born and raised. I'm still here. I, pretty much joined the Yang Gang whenever Yang was on the first, what's it called, Breakfast Club meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I've just kind of been hooked. I was mainly on the Yang subreddit. You may have heard me talk about the Yang subreddit or complain about it. I don't know. And then I started going on Twitter, and I was able to find McCoy, which has been great. And yeah, so we've just been pretty much connected ever since. And we started, McCoy around May, June, when the George Floyd occurrence happened. And yeah, been here since the beginning, and I'm enjoying the ride.
So tell me,
guys.
yeah, this is great. I mean, I was curious about what your take is on Yang's kind of platform and message around the Floyd stuff, the BLM stuff, and just like racial justice and relations. It's not, from my perspective, it's not something I feel like he talks a ton about. I feel like his policies would probably help foundational issues, but he doesn't wade into like the real kind of specifics a lot when it comes to like one incident or another. And just curious, like, has that come up on the McCoy channel? Have you guys talked about whether he should do more or if this is the right approach to acknowledge it? Because certainly when you look at the New York City mayoral polls, kind of race relations and social justice is a top issue for voters of all backgrounds. And I'm just curious, how do you think he's doing with that issue?
Who wants to take a stab at it first?
So I know that there was definitely a push by some McCoy members for him to talk more. When Ahmaud Arbery was sort of, murdered and shot in Georgia, right? And that happened some weeks. Well, it happened some time before, but it became public around April maybe. And so I do remember there were people in McCoy who were like, "Yo, we need Yang to really loudly and kind of boldly speak about this and kind of like say, hey, your supporters, especially your Black supporters, are hurting and we need your voice." Now, we haven't really talked about it, I don't think, on the streams. Really, we've talked about how some of his policies are driven inspiration from, the Black community and some of the way they organize, and how maybe we wish that had been said a little bit more openly, that, hey, I modeled some of these policies based off of what would help the Black community or how the Black community has organized before. We haven't talked about it in the context of New York City, I don't think, really at all, New York City mayor, but I do agree that it's a big thing there, and it'll have to become less of like a side issue. It kind of becomes front and center when you're in a city as diverse and just as an activist type of city as New York. So that's kind of my, I think personally for me, I'm not really one who always wades into some of these issues either. So it kind of has been comfortable with how Yang has talked about it, but I do recognize that there is a bit more of a groundswell and that more will have to be done.
Yeah, I agree. And I look at it like this too, that when it comes to the city of New York, it's very unique in its own way and in its own right. It's very unique. And even then, with the constituents there that are looking at this race, I know a lot of them, they're like, well, Yang, he may be a good mayor, but we don't know if he's going to do what's actually necessary to help put New York first. And so it's kind of tough and a challenge to kind of weigh in something that me personally, I don't know nothing about. But at the same time, I do agree with what Toby said, is that we wished he could like speak out a little bit more, and especially since the city that he's running for mayor is from, a lot of Black people, they live there, they've been born there, they've been there for generations, so they have roots there. And if you're not going to talk about those hot topic buttons that needs to be addressed, in a sense, it could cost him his mayor race. But at the same time, it needs to be addressed. It has to be spoken out. It has to be addressed front and center, or else, the Black community in New York, they may not ride with him. They probably vote for him, or some of them may not. But at the end of the day, it's like, what are you going to do to help us out? What are you going to do to make sure the things that have been plaguing our city for generations after generations is done correctly? Are you going to leave us out? Are you going to use us just to get our votes and then that's it? Those sort of things.
Yeah, totally. Elle, what do you think?
No, I pretty much agree with you guys. Like, I feel like because of his presidential race, he didn't really speak on racial topics too much. I don't think he's. I noticed that he's definitely speaking on it more so now, compared to his presidential race, which is good. But I know that it's like a tight rope to walk, but it's you just kind of have to walk it. Like whether I know it's scary, but it needs to be done because like we walk it every day. We deal with it every day. We live it. Like we own homes on this tightrope pretty much. So
Yeah.
So it's like you have to address it. You have to address the issues, and
I mean, certainly when you look at his policies on the campaign website, I mean, he's talking about a civilian kind of commissioner of the police department. He's talking about more police officers being required to live in the communities that they're serving. He's talked about, more training, cameras, those kinds of things. And of course, the basic income stuff. And you have to believe, I would believe that would be beneficial to all New Yorkers, including the Black community. And it sounds like that's probably right on that line that he needs to be on, like push for things that help, but he doesn't need to march every day and make it sort of the top of his morning, as he's campaigning. Or do you feel like actually he probably needs to do a little more, that just being the policy guy isn't going to be enough? He needs to somehow speak to it in a more personal way. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I look at it like this. When he did his town halls, especially in Iowa and New Hampshire, he made people feel as though he can relate to their issues and to be able to bring their issues to real life in a way where it's like, okay, what you're talking about, we see it and we live it and we get it. He needs to bring that same presence to the city of New York. He needs to tell that same messaging and cater towards the people of New York, and especially those Black communities that's been caught lacking for a number of years. He needs to bring that up and let them know and realize, like, I'm here with you. I understand and I get it. I get the fact that our city is becoming a mess. I get the fact that many businesses are closing. I get the fact that some of you guys barely have enough money to survive on as it is anyways. I get that. I have something to help you. I have something to give you, and I want to partner with you to bring that idea to reality. And not sugarcoat it, because Black folks, we're the type of people where it's like, give it to us straight, give it to us raw. If it hurts our feelings, oh well, but at least you told us, at least you gave us that option to do the necessary research to see whether or not either one, you're full of crap or you're actually legitimate and serious about what you're saying, and even then, to kind of push that further, continue to build those relationships, irregardless of what happens, as long as they see you and you are actively involved in their community, they're gonna be like, okay, you're not just full of show, but you're actually here. I remember watching the video of the two Black guys from New York who are going around the city just passing out people $1,000. Like, I watched that like continuously because it was like, it echoes. But at the same time, his message was very clear. He's like, I want to unscrew you guys because you guys are getting screwed around. I want to help you to get unscrewed. And this is what I want to do, is make sure that you get $1,000 in your hand every month, no matter what. And it resonated. And even they could tell the people there, they're like, okay, all we got to do is vote for Andrew Yang for president. Yeah. Well, now the same message echoes, vote for that man to be your mayor. And he could possibly get that done a whole lot quicker.
How did the council take the decision for him to run for mayor? Were you excited? Were you guys sort of debating it, or were you all opposed to it? I know it was controversial within a lot of parts of the Yang Gang, a lot of us were debating it, and I was curious, was it a hot topic on the council?
Yeah, I feel like it was mixed. I was very on the fence of wanting him to run. I kind of didn't. I mean, I'm happy that he's running now. I'm not like opposed to it, but I kind of didn't want him to run because I felt like he made such a huge influence from the outside. You know, like, you know, with his humanity
Forward.
Well, the candidates, you know, a lot of them won, you know, a lot of them also lost as well. But, you know, to continuously push that, you know, throughout every single voting cycle, especially, you know, for local candidates too, you know, like he had like a big voice with Yang Speaks. He has a really big voice too. And like also with CNN, you know, as a correspondent, like he had like a pretty big voice, and I felt like it was just kind of building and you know, getting bigger. And a lot of people liked Yang on CNN. A lot of people, you know, like Yang on his podcast and, you know, his Humanity Forward. I felt like, you know, he was getting bigger that way. And I felt like he probably could have done more throughout the entire country that way. But I am happy that he is running for mayor as well, because I do want to see how he is, you know, in a political leadership position like that. And to see if he can actually like enact his policies and his ideas, and to see what New York will be like in the next, you know, 4, 8, 12 years.
Toby, what was your take? Were you also on the fence like Elle?
Yeah, definitely. And I remember we talked about it. Actually, you were on the stream, which was cool. When we had our like Being Black in the Yang Gang episode at the end of last year.
Yeah.
And of course the conversation got turned that direction. I remember Dennis there, Mindful Skeptics was there, Fred the Felon came on. Like people were just giving all their inputs, and it was a bit like, man, like I know how New York City can be. I mean, New Yorkers can be tough. You know, they roast people for fun. Like that's just kind of like that culture comes a lot from also the DMV, which is where I'm from. I'm from Maryland, really. But like a lot of those cultures, like it's just you can't. You have to know what you're walking into. And I was like, man, like the national level, there was a great like way of appealing to a lot of different groups. Humanity Forward, just like Elle said, was getting more popular. Yang Speaks and all that. So I kind of felt like having that driving force at the top would be good. But I wasn't really pro third party like some other people. I remember the debate that you were on, Tom, that Dennis hosted. I watched that, and I was not on the side of let's do a third party run or primary Kamala or whoever. So I would have preferred New York City mayor over him running some other kind of Quijada, whatever you say, campaign. But, you know, I knew that there would be legitimate roadblocks and a lot of scrutiny of his record. Like, because I remember it being reported that he never really voted in local elections. And I think he's done a good job at explaining all these different things, why he was out of state so long, why he never really voted a lot, like 90% of people haven't in the city. So I think he's done a great job fending some of these topics, but I kind of felt like it was just going to be landmine after landmine. But actually watching the interviews and seeing sort of some of the videos of him walking throughout the city and being in different, you know, boroughs and different neighborhoods and different communities, I think it is bringing a much needed energy and perspective to New York. So I just hope that really what I want is that New York Yang Gang people are front and center, kind of explaining like how Yang will help versus a lot of like out of state people who just wanted to win because, you know, Yang Gang. So I'm pro it. I'm pro the run at this point, but I'm really hoping to see more of the people who are in the city, especially people who are from certain activist communities who've really helped build parts of the city. So there's a bit more cred.
Yeah. Ronald, were you in the Unity 2020 camp, or where were you in that whole debate, which got pretty testy?
I was on the more so the spectator side. And I told people this too. I'm like, listen, Andrew Yang is a grown man. Like that man is grown. He has a whole family to worry about, to take care of. Like whatever he does, if he decides to run for mayor of New York, okay, cool. He has my support. If he continues to do things from the outside, which again, as Elle and Toby said, okay, I'm still going to support you. But at the end of the day, it's like he's grown. he can do whatever he wants to do, and the only other person he probably has to listen to better be Evelyn. You know,
Yeah.
it better be Evelyn. But even then, you know, she's been very supportive of a lot of the things that he's done thus far. You know, and I feel as though for anybody, that's a key. That's a huge key, and it shows that togetherness. That no matter what happens, we're going to ride this thing out. And I think that echoes New York City as a whole. You know, no matter what happens in New York, they always find a way to come together, put aside differences, come together, and get the job done. And I feel as though this mayoral campaign is going to shed a lot of light on it. It's going to allow the citizens of New York to see their everyday life being lived out by a guy who very much cares and very much wants the best in anybody, you know, and just have that conversation with him and just to kind of sit back and listen to him and be like, you know, hey, this is what I want to do for you. This is how I envision it. You know, is this something worth fighting for? Yes or no? And even then, it's like if you say yes, okay, great. If you say no, okay, great. Now let's talk about why do you not want to fight? Why do you not think this is not worth fighting for? And again, he's that guy where it's like he's going to ask you questions in order for you to get uncomfortable. So you kind of sit back and be like, okay, maybe my train of thought may have to be shifted just a little bit, but not enough to the point where it's like, you know, I'm going to go into it blindly. No. He does things in a way where it's like, you know, makes you think harder.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It is fascinating how we all thought this was a pretty smart dude who has some really kind of insightful visionary ideas, who's ready to be president. But then I think a lot of us did not give the guy credit to make his own decisions about what's best for him. And it's like, well, obviously he should do this. If he does that, it's a stupid move. It's like, well, I don't know. He's no dummy. He's a full grown man. he probably could think things through, and he's probably got to factor in a lot of perspectives, including Evelyn's. And so I too was frankly, I was hoping for commerce or labor or small business administration in the Biden cabinet. That would have been my first pick. I was a little bit worried about how to Toby's point, like how he would hold up in a rough and tumble New York campaign. But I have to say, looking at the last 2-3 polls, looking at the news coverage, like he's doing all right. You know, he's moving the chains there, and he's technically a front runner. So
it's crazy.
Which is like what? Like if people are like over covering him, like challenging him, like trying to pull out dirt on him and stuff, like this is a very weird position versus what we were seeing in the national election, where, you know, they just ignore him or, you know, get his name wrong and not even just laugh at him. And now people are like, you know, really trying to go after him, which is a great sign, right?
Oh yeah,
that's true.
Oh yeah.
So tell me a little bit about so let's zoom out from Yang for a minute and just talk about America. Like how yeah, the rest of this great nation. How are you feeling now in, you know, what are we in January 30th, 2021? We have a new president. What's it like? What's your take?
Man, I look at it like this. January is always that month where it's like it's the honeymoon phase before a lot of crap either goes good or it could go bad. Okay. And so once we get past January, of course we've had the inauguration came in, and of course we celebrated Dr. King's legacy. We've done that. But again, like I said, January is more so, to me, in my opinion, is more so that honeymoon stage, to the point where like, okay, what's going to happen. Because as we all can recall, last year, January, it was like, okay, nothing too serious or weird should happen. Come February, March, everybody's on lockdown. And then the rest of the year was a complete crap show, you know? And so, again, when we look at it this time around, it's like, okay, here's that honeymoon phase. And we're like, okay, we know that February, March of last year, it took a huge nosedive. Hopefully, February and March of this year is not going to follow the same suit, because if so, we're screwed. No matter how you slice it, we're screwed. No matter what part of the country you're in, you're screwed. However, again, just keeping hope alive that things work out for the better. That's my take.
Yeah. What do you think? Oh, Toby, go ahead.
I guess, like, yeah, I mean, what Ron said was very true. Like, we're kind of waiting. Like, this month has been kind of long. Like, the first 20 days, I feel like, went by super quickly. I mean, no one was expecting the insurrection and all these other things. Well, some people could have seen it coming. Some people could have seen it coming. So now it's kind of like, well, hopefully it can only get better from here. Like February, okay, you have Black History Month, which, I mean, that's more of just like from a media and cultural perspective, people can shine light on things that we didn't really know and lift up these people who are, you know, these hidden figures, these modern figures. And then beyond that, I mean, I guess you have 100 days in terms of the administration to really get something done. The 100 days where people really be looking, did you meet your goal? Did you not? So, of course, the pandemic is going to be front and center. Trying to get these vaccines rolled out is going to be front and center. So that basically gives you until end of March to really have spent a lot of political capital. And so I guess I'm just watching the news and kind of seeing how things are. I mean, I'm not intensely watching. I just see headlines and I'm like, okay, cool. I know people give their breakdowns here and there. Like, I'm like a little bit tapped in, but I'm also not as, you know, as Biden. He's just like the old man with not a lot of crazy, exciting things, which is, I mean, how a lot of people like it, hence why they voted for him. So I guess I'm just trying to see, like, okay, what's gonna happen? What are like action items that people individually can do? So in terms of Humanity Forward, and even not Yang himself, but just us as people, like, what can we do? I actually talked to a Humanity Forward person in Mass at a meeting on Monday, and I was trying to figure out, well, what are things for 2021 that we can do, so we're not just passively looking at the top and the administration hoping to like do something good for the people. So I'm trying to look at, you know, what are things, you know, last week we talked about the war on drugs, or technically this week, right? We're still Saturday. So I'm like, what are things that activists are doing on the ground to help push for, you know, better drug policy and, you know, criminal justice reform. So really, it's kind of like, if anything was taught to us by 2020, is that you have to like make things happen yourself. Georgia showed that perfectly. Like, they went ahead, they weren't playing games, and they voted for the first time to have 2 Democratic senators. So it's kind of like, outside of the top in the politics, what are things that you can do as an individual that will continue to move the needle? So that's like one thought that I've had. You know, the state of the country is kind of belongs to us. And for the people who have been on the sidelines and not as involved in the politics, I think it is kind of time to look at, you know, ideally nonpartisan things that will help push the country forward at our own level. So we'll see how things are in terms of a lot of these like tensions and race relations. I mean, I know the Biden administration is trying to make racial equity a priority, and they rolled back some of Trump's, like, you know, things that he had done, talking about like getting rid of diversity initiatives. And so I don't know how that's going to affect things, but at the very least, we as people can do our own action items. And that's what I'm trying to like focus on a bit more.
Elle, what's life been like for you in Florida? I guess you have a new neighbor. Congratulations.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell I did to deserve that.
Thank you for your service. So, yeah, what's your take?
So, I mean, yeah, this is pretty much just the end of the first month of January. Like, yeah, I'm happy that, you know, Biden's in office and Trump is out. I kind of wanted to just give myself like a little break from being so glued into the news and everything. That's kind of sort of been my habit for the past 4 years, and I'm realizing that was the case. We've all been kind of addicted to
Yeah.
social media where people just shared news articles, and then Reddit shares news articles, and
Yeah.
so yeah. So I'm just trying to give myself a break. Just trying to focus on myself a bit, but just from like the little headlines here and there, it's like, okay, I understand that sometimes the headlines are definitely sensationalized. I understand some of the headlines are, not exactly correct. And you have to like read the article, but I'm just like so tired. It's not like I'm gonna totally stop doing that. I'm not like, well, Biden's in office, time to take my hands off the wheels now. I just
It
need to
is.
give myself a break from my own mental health because these past 4 years were just so mentally exhausting. And it wasn't even until Biden was, elected and, put into on January 20th that I really realized just how stressful the past 4 years were.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like for me, there was this moment of when Lady Gaga sang the national anthem. It was a very kind of like a transitional point for me where I was like, okay, finally, like we're turning the page, because the last 4 years, I feel like there was a crazy person that like lived in my neighborhood and they like sucked up all of the oxygen, and I got my life back now that Trump is gone, because he was always doing such crazy shit that you couldn't focus on what mattered to you because you're just worried about, well, what is he going to do next?
Yeah.
And it's nice. It's nice to have a president who I don't have to be watching every minute to see like what crazy crap is he tweeting out and what are his followers being kind of told and misled to do. I mean, if you let me just share my screen for a moment. If you look at some of the executive actions that, oh great, I got a freaking advertisement.
Okay.
I guess I need to buy Mrs. Nerd something.
On the spot.
Thank you, CNN, for recommending that to me.
It's Valentine's Day.
Yeah, it's coming up. So look, he's strengthening Medicaid, trying to shore up the ACA. Very reasonable. Protecting funding for women's health. Stuff about climate crisis, rejoining Paris Climate Accord. Reestablishing the Council on Advisors on Science. Protecting, canceling the Keystone Pipeline, I'm very okay with. Advancing racial equity. Like, these are all things that you're like, yeah, very reasonable. Very, very reasonable. Are they like super exciting, like, oh my God moments? No. But like, maybe we don't need that from the White House. We just need like grown up leadership and solving sometimes complex problems very methodically. And that's okay. It's okay. Like, we don't need to start, kind of shouting matches with people every other hour. I mean, just Trump not being on Twitter has made I wonder what the charts are like for Twitter usage, because as much as he kind of made me crazy and deranged, I don't go to Twitter as much now because I feel like, oh, okay. It's just like, yeah, there's some debates here and there. Oh, 1,600, 2,000 on the stimulus payments. There's still discussions, but it's not like, oh, the president has accused like someone of assassinating JFK, or has, called, Biden a spy or whatever, just crazy nonsense.
Yeah.
But it is a transition, right? It's gonna, I mean, I go through a little bit of withdrawal. It's like, ooh, I forgot what it's like to live in like a more like kind of sane place.
Well, I look at it like this. It's the boring politics that we needed. That's how I'm looking at it. And I know somebody in the voice once said it once before. We needed something boring to look forward to, because again, as everybody said, the last 4 years, mental health has probably been everybody's number one, if not number two priority to have in check. And now with Biden in office, it's like, okay, he's bringing the country back to some kind of normalcy, if we want to call it that. And he doesn't tweet very often at all. If he does tweet, is like, once every few weeks, if that. And so like, okay, that's cool. You're trying to at least do something, and that's kind of what we needed. We needed a break to kind of, as far as mental health goes, to unwind from the politics and be able to do stuff that's necessary to be done. Like Toby said, a lot of people I know, especially here in my state, we're trying to get ranked choice voting passed, and make that a conversation to have here in Michigan. And so, again, that's one aspect of what we're doing. And then another aspect is possibly like, looking at certain issues going on in the community and possibly maybe run for some type of office to get those solved, and again, just kind of make things relevant and get things back under control. Because like you said, we had a crazy neighbor who sucked up the life of the whole community. And now it's like, rather than everybody looking outside their windows every 2 seconds to figure out what is he doing now? What is he doing now? Okay, it's Joe. He's not doing nothing. Everybody goes.
He's just mowing his lawn.
What's that? Here. He's mowing his lawn with his socks on and sandals. It's okay. It's normal. Go back inside.
He's taking out his recycle. That's so normal.
Yeah.
he's not like burning a car in his front lawn. I mean, like you look at his tweets. He's saying like, "Hey, we need to give more economic relief to people. We should wear masks. The price of doing nothing is too high." He's got a picture of a bunch of people meeting, masked and distanced.
That's so nice.
It's like, yeah, he's saying, "Hey, people should get vaccinated." That sounds reasonable. Yeah, why not?
He's just not contradicting himself, saying like,
oh,
you should get vaccinated, then have like an anti-vax, like retweet an anti-vaxxer or something.
I know, right? He's not retweeting like crazy conspiracy theories about, the storm or the pedophile kind of pizza parlor or whatever. Like, it's just like, this is very, it's sort of like, you don't want your water company or the kind of the city government to be super exciting. You just want them to do their jobs, and that's fine. I'll turn on like reality TV if I want like some craziness, but I don't need that coming out of the White House. So what are your all thoughts, Ronald? You talked a little bit about local elections. Are you thinking of putting your name out there, and what about the rest of the council? Or how are we all thinking about making change at the grassroots level?
Well, I saw my homie Mindful Skeptics. He was in here in the chat somewhere. Shout out to Mindful Skeptics, aka Boys. He was in here, and so we've already talked about it, and we've already had discussions and everything else. So there's a likelihood I might throw my hat in the ring, and especially since there could be a possibility that me and Boys, we may end up being in the same district, because our counties are very close to one another, very close.
Oh,
and so we're like I told Boys, like I'm only like a 45-minute drive away from him. That's with roads clear, and I'm trying to do the speed limit. Yeah, 45 minutes. Roads are clear, and I don't care about the speed limit. No, I'll probably be there like 30. Give or take. But even still, we both realize there's a bunch of issues going on. We both live in counties that are like heavily Republican controlled, where the majority of the seats are held by Republicans. And even then, I looked at the minutes from the last meeting for the commissioners. There was nothing in there that suggested change. There was nothing in there that suggested anything to be done for the people. I mean, if anything, they've had some. They have a budget set up for buying 2 new police cars for the county sheriff's department. Like, for what? You already have a slew of SUVs as it is. Anyways, why do you need to spend $98,000 on 2 cars? You could put that $98,000 towards, I don't know, resources to kind of help curb evictions, or use that money to give towards, the food pantry.
Yeah.
School. I'm just saying. There's a bunch of stuff that $98,000 could go towards, and yes, it's public. It's just not just no made up number. No, I actually still have the budget outlined for St. Joseph County on my computer, and I read it. I get mad. I leave it alone. But I look at it as a good way, because it's like, okay, if we need stuff to change, and if we understand that Republicans, they're not really willing to do anything progressive as much, they want to keep the status quo. Status quo is not going to cut it for most citizens. It's not. And especially with the majority of the citizens who work the status quo type of jobs and only get status quo type of pay and expect it to raise a family where everything is going through the roof, but their paychecks, it doesn't equate to that. Something's got to change. Something's got to give. Something
right on, man. Well, I hope you do run. By the way, I just
Okay.
Everything fell. Oh no!
Everything fell.
well, I thought somebody just tackled your ass. I was like, oh no. What the hell happened? Maybe you do need another police car.
Over here, he's trying to get me to get him a thing of cereal, so I might have to give him some cereal so he can eat and whatnot.
Yeah, hook him up with some cereals.
No,
I had one of mine come in, and they don't even say anything. They just hold the iPad out, and they know that they need the fingerprint to unlock that bad boy.
Oh.
So that's how we communicate now. They just shoves things at me. So one thing, Ronald, that you should know is before this stream, I was just in a meeting with the volunteer team at ofthepeople.us, which I think Boyce is a supporter of as well. And we're going to be adding a bunch of new features and doing some promotion, sending a lot of traffic to that site in a few weeks, maybe. So if you decide to run, go ahead, consider creating a profile on ofthepeople.us. It's basically a way for local candidates to be discovered by national donors and supporters and activists. So, someone might be like, hey, I'm not in St. Joseph's County, but I like Ronald and I like his views and I want to hear more of his voice. So I want to kind of chip in, and then they can click through a link to your official campaign website if you decide to run. So think about that for the future.
Man, food for thought. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So let me wrap up. I know we're coming close to our 45-minute mark, and I've got to get ready for Andrew Yang fundraiser event that I am co-organizing. But before we wrapped up, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is presidential politics and 2024. So there is definitely a strong contingent of folks who feel like, what for the 2024 Democratic ticket, that's obvious. And it would be, if Biden doesn't run again, it would be Kamala. And then there are others, and I'll be honest, I'm in the second camp, which is I want to see a full range of options. I want a very vigorous debate. I feel like this Biden pick was a natural transitional 4 years for us, but then now we need to talk about the big change that we want to consider. And while Kamala is for sure a very credible candidate, I'm open to hearing other voices, but curious how you all think, and if you have any favorites. Obviously for me it would be Yang or Yang, but then I've been warming up to Buttigieg, to be honest with you. I didn't really like him so much last time, but I think he might be going places. But maybe we'll start with you, Ronald, in the order of introductions. Who do you think it's going to be a discussion in 2024, or is it just like, no, it's obviously Kamala? And are you down with that, or do you support someone else?
if anybody who knows me, they know that Yang is my go-to guy. Like there's really not a whole lot of candidates that stood out to me. I say that back. The only other one who actually stood out to me was Elizabeth Warren. She was the only one that actually stood out next to Yang. And I'm like, well, if Elizabeth Warren gets picked, let's say for VP, like I could ride with that. Like that's cool. That is so cool, you know. And even then, you know, she wanted to the idea of, you know, okay, I actually read Andrew Yang's book, and a lot of stuff that he says, it makes sense. I'm like, yes, Liz, it does make sense. Why not? You know, the idea. Go ahead, get Yang on national television. That's what we're trying to do to you. And even then, if she runs again, and if it's Yang, like I think those two would make a huge difference as far as the quality of candidates go. Pete, Repeat, we all know who Repeat is. I'm sorry.
So you would like a Yang Warren combo? Or?
I would, if me, I would see a Yang Warren combo because with Liz, she does have a lot of progressive ideas that could very well get, you know, enacted, but at the same time, she's also another people person. She's another person that, you know, if for whatever reason is going on, whatever story you have, she's going to be there to listen and treat you like a human being, and at the same time be like, I'm not just going to push you away. I'm not going to be one of those people that's here for a photo op. No, like I want to hear your story. I want to hear, you know, what your vision is and see what I can do to help pass that vision along. And of course, you got the numbers guy who's like, well, according to the numbers, we should be able to do that and get that done effectively by much and much time with X amount of dollars, and we should be good. I'm like, sure, I'll take that. Yes.
All right. So what about you, Toby? Do you think, do you have a pick? Do you think it'll be competitive?
Yeah, I think there's going to be so much energy. Like the right is going through a civil war right now. The left had some issues like after Bernie dropped out, but I feel like they've become more empowered, whether it's the People's Party or whether it's just down ballot candidates. I think they're going to position themselves to have someone run in 2024. At this point, of course, if Yang becomes the mayor, I personally would not want him to try to run right after getting elected, just because that, like, if you're in New York, you're in New York and you're there to serve the people. Like de Blasio, even though like I think he already had won his, he was already reelected, but him running for New York City mayor or running for president while he was mayor was not a good look, and I would absolutely not want him to do that in his first term. So in terms of other candidates, you know, I don't have like a favorite. I did like Warren. You know, I heard her speak in the town hall like early 2019. In general, yeah, I kind of liked some of the stuff that she had to say, and I actually liked Pete early on when he was on Fox News, because I was like, wow, he was able to go in the Fox den and speak to this other constituent, and then he was getting support for some people who had voted for Trump in the past, or people who were Republicans but not looking to vote for Trump. But then, I don't know, he kind of flipped pretty hard on some of his positions, and I was like, okay, I don't know about this man. Even though I don't dislike him personally, I just felt like he was not getting a lot of votes from Black people, was not getting a lot of votes for young people. I don't know if this is going to be sustainable to carry the Democratic Party vote. So I know he's going to try to run. I mean, obviously he had the ambition to get in the cabinet, but you know, that's not who I'm looking towards. And then I don't really know who else I would really be gunning for. I saw people say something about Yang and Mosh. I know they did talk on Yang Speaks. I still need to finish that episode. I can't even think about other people who have been trying to run. People talk about AOC. That's not happening soon. And besides them, I don't know. I'm just looking at the ascension, who's like coming up through the ladder. And, you know, I was never one to hate Kamala, but I was a part of the crowd that gloated that we were beating her in polls in California. I mean, I know she's kind of the one that's up next, and I know there's some Yang Gang people who said they would vote for Trump or would not vote for her if she gets the nomination. I'm definitely not going to be doing that. I'll just watch it all kind of play out and see what happens. So
Cool.
I don't know. I don't know who my one pick is, but I will say that I hope that even without Trump in the picture, people still can like not just go to sleep, but really continue to advocate for things no matter who's in office. Just as a point to the previous thing you were saying, because Trump is not there, crazy headlines are not there. But I'm hoping that energy gets redirected to something useful and people don't just go back to brunch and kind of chilling. But we need a break, but we also need to organize.
Maybe we could do, but we can have brunch, and then after brunch, we can do some good work.
There we go. There you go.
We so far have not had a Kamala backer. Elle, are you going to be that person, or
I was actually possibly like I'd be fine with Kamala. Like I thought like because of what everybody else was saying, it's like, oh, it has to be somebody else aside from Kamala. But no, I'd be fine with Kamala. Like, she's most likely going to be the Democratic candidate after Joe Biden, because I know that Biden said that he wanted to be a transitional president anyway. But you know, if there was just like a really crowded field, then I'd be fine with Cory Booker. I don't feel like he gets a lot of attention, but like he seems like to be like a really like good candidate.
Yeah, Cory definitely has high ambitions as well. He's got a great story, a lot of experience now, and I think he and Yang get along pretty well too. So that's always a good sign.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I guess Cory versus Kamala. Yeah, I kind of like Cory a little more than Kamala, but well, I'm excited just to see a competitive race. What I do not want is everybody just to be like, oh, well, it has to be Kamala. Right. I want her to run and compete and earn it, and not just assume that it's her turn.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Well, look, we are out of time. It went by very quickly.
Yeah.
But I want to thank all of you, Ronald, Toby, and Elle, for coming on to the Nerd Show. If anybody watching this is like, hey, I like these folks. They're pretty cool, pretty chill, thoughtful. Go to the Melanated Council of Yang. McCoy is the abbreviated way to pronounce it. They have a great YouTube channel, and I also feel like it takes a lot of resilience and persistence to keep the conversation going in a post-2020 presidential election world. So kudos to you all for keeping kind of like keeping your game up, because as you mentioned, Toby, like, yes, the orange man is gone, but we still have a lot of problems. So we still got a lot of work to do. And Ronald, hopefully we'll be seeing you running for office. Toby and Elle, are you guys going to be running for anything, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, come on.
I don't know. Like, I would definitely try to help people run, try to, find anybody that's local who might be running. But I don't know. I don't want to be that person.
Yeah, that's I would say there's not a 0% chance, but it's probably approaching 0 as time goes on. No, I would definitely want to be on the back end or talk to someone like President Manny, Manny Ortega, people who kind of know politics and government a little better, and sort of see how we can affect maybe local people running. Like, there's some interesting things that I think I could get involved in terms of like introducing some of these humanity forward ideas to local candidates who are already running. Make those kind of ranked choice voting for one, which failed unfortunately on Massa's ballot. Whatever, we'll try again.
There you go.
Well, the point is, I would like to be involved more in these campaigns, because I'm just a lowly person who works in software who doesn't know about politics and government, but here I am. So
yeah.
Well, sometimes it's good to have fresh perspectives in there, Tobes. So don't count it out. But if you end up becoming part of Team Ronald, that would be great as well. Trying to make that happen, or
okay.
I agree.
I'll be keeping in touch.
I'm guessing you guys will be talking again about that. Well, look, I think this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you for joining, and long overdue. It was weird how everybody converged on that stream. I don't know why, like all Yang Gang was in there.
Yeah.
I don't know if people were retweeting it or what happened, but
it was weird. It was like a pop-up reunion of all the Yang Gangers, so it was great.
Right.
Yeah.
Like everybody was there.
Like,
When that skateboard show showed up, I'm like, what?
I know. I was like, oh, okay.
it's on. It's on. All right. So with that, we'll say goodbye, nerds.
Bye, nerds.
Bye, nerds.
Or
Bye,
showing up.
nerds.